Hey guys, this is Jason, Colorado Mountain Man Survival. I'm out here at our trapping course at camp. Today I'm going to show you how to use a twitch up snare for a bird trap. Okay, so for this twitch up snare, you're going to need a spring pole or a counterweight. For the spring poles here at our camp, I've used PVC pipe to simulate a tree. If I kept using a tree over and over and over again, it would gain memory and it would just not bend properly. But anyways, I'm going to use a spring pole for this trap. For the spring pole, I've got to have my cable or my paracord I'm using here to tie into a toggle. Most snares have some sort of toggle. And then here is my trapping wire. This could be paracord, this could be snare wire, this could be cable wire, this could be natural cordage, whatever you're going to use. So tie in my toggle to my spring pole and then the trapping wire into the toggle. But you can see here I actually have the rope that comes down from the spring pole. The toggle is tied in at the end of that guide line, whatever you want to call it. And then above that toggle is where my snare wire ties in. And the toggle is tied in near the end, one end of it. This toggle can vary in length depending on the size of the trap. I do have a notch carved in here, so it'll hold that rope securely in place. Doesn't really matter what kind of loops you use to tie in here, just make sure it's secure. There is not a trapper's knot on here, but I got another video out there, check it out to show you how to do a trapper's knot. But anyways, the other support structures for this, so I'm going to let this go for now. I've got these, what I call number 7 sticks or 90-degree sticks or a Y stick. So this stick right here and this stick right here are both pounded into the ground 12 to 18 inches. That can be pounded in further or less depending on what type of soil you have. If you have really thick, dense, heavy soil like clay, you don't need to pound it in the ground as far. This is really loose, rocky soil. It doesn't hold a stake, so I've got to pound these stakes into the ground quite a bit. But as you can see on this Y stick here, I've got a really thick tree branch, and then this is where a smaller tree branch came out, forming this little V notch right here, or 90-degree notch, whatever you can call it. And then I've cut this flat right above where these two join in. That way when I have my hammer stick or rock, I can bang right in that area and drive that stick in the ground. You're gonna need 2 of those. Okay, now I have another part of the support structure. This is gonna be the archway or the bridge that runs from this stick to this stick. This arch top or this bridge is going to go into these V's, so it locks into place right there. I see a lot of these traps where people take and tie this in. They'll use a bit of paracord here, bit of paracord here, or they'll use rubber bands or whatever. That's a waste. You don't need that. You're wasting resources. What happens, let me go grab that toggle real fast. This toggle will actually hold this in place. It's not going to go anywhere now. But I'm going to keep that toggle held in place. A toggle wants to move in some direction. You can see that toggle wants to move out. Every toggle wants to move in some direction. The trigger stick binds up that toggle to keep it from moving this way. So I've got another support structure right here. This stick that's again pounded in the ground, probably about 12 inches. And then my trigger stick. My trigger stick goes against the toggle here, and then the other end goes against the support structure. So now as you can see, this trigger stick is holding the toggle back by putting pressure on this support stick. So we've got 3 support structures, toggle, trigger stick. I really want to stress these different parts or mechanisms on this trap, because darn near every toggle or twitch up snare that you build is going to have your spring pull, your trigger or your toggle, your trigger stick, and then some sort of support structure. Your imagination is the limit at this point. Now, another part of this, I'm going to make this a bird trap. This is the intention for this. A bird's going to fly in from the top. It's going to land on this stick, hopefully, and then we're going to catch it. So to keep this, your snare wire up off the ground, you want to have some more support structures that it's going to hold this snare wire up. If this snare wire was laying on the ground, the bird's going to land here. It's not going to do anything. So what you're going to do is you're going to put these little sticks, and these just have to barely be stuck in the ground. They're not very solid. The only thing they need to do is hold the weight of this rope. So what I'm going to do is just kind of balance this rope on top of those sticks. You got to make sure that those sticks do not interfere in any way of that rope being flung up once that bird lands on this stick. Now the question is, what am I going to do to get a bird to land right here? I'm going to say please a lot.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
You got to ask real nicely. You got to bring a Disney princess with you.
Right. I'm going to put a coyote right here, and the roadrunner's going to come get it. But no, seriously, birds obviously like grain. I could litter the ground with right here with a little bit of grain, whether it be corn or part of granola bar or grains that you find out in the woods, maybe some berries or whatever. If you can't find that, then birds also like shiny objects, things that they use for their nests. So if you have something small and shiny, a pretty rock, it's worth a try. But you're going to set this on the ground in here, and birds like to land on stuff. So this trigger stick is a nice perch for them. So they might see that food or that pretty object, and typically what they're going to do, the first thing they're going to do is come down there and land on that stick. When they do, that releases that toggle, your pull's going to shoot up, and hopefully you get a bird. It's not perfect, it's not 100%, but it's one way to catch a bird. So I'm going to show you how this triggers. You ready?
Ready when you are.
All right, it's probably going to rip my arm off, but ready? We're going to go. Got me. Now, as you saw, this didn't snag up really fast, so either this rope is old, there might be there's a sticky point, so there's some sap on there. Make sure your rope is clean, otherwise it could potentially snag up. One more failure point on this. I'm going to set this real quick again. Be sure, I can see this setting it up really easily. Be sure that your toggle is not too long. You can see this is almost touching the ground. Ideally, what I would probably want to do is either cut this stick shorter or dig a track out here so that toggle does not hit the ground. If you need it to be more sensitive, you're going to make sure that this point, where the trigger stick hits the toggle, is pointed, so it just kind of wobbles on there. And then you're also going to want to point on this side.
You can see how much of a point that actually is, if I can get it to focus.
But it's just barely touching that stick. So we'll do this one more time. Very simple trap to make, very simple trap to set up. You just need the parts to it. This part of the trap, see I have a fence here. This is for a different trap design. Just ignore that. Really what we're focusing on is this support structure right here for birds. We're going to eat tonight. All right, so one last thing.
I don't know, you look kind of stringy.
Yeah, I am pretty stringy. One last thing before we're done here. Location is key for birds. I am kind of in the middle of the forest here. I ideally would probably not put my trap right here unless I saw a lot of activity for birds. Ideally, I would go out into an open meadow where I have a tree that I can use. If I don't have a tree out there to use as a spring pole, I'm either going to drive a flimsy tree into the ground out there to make a spring pole, or I'm going to use some sort of counterweight as my trapping, my active mechanism. The engine, right? The engine for this. So location is key. Make sure you're setting this trap where there's bird activity. This trap can also be used for other creatures, smaller animals. That's where the fence comes into play, but we're not going to talk about that today. This is particular trap right now, we're focusing on birds. But that's it. That's another way to catch a bird. There's no really specific name for this. It's a twitch up snare. Anybody that comes up with a name for it, good on them. It's just something they made up. But hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you get a chance to get out here and practice this trap. I made it look a lot easier than what it is. When you get out here, you'll be like, how did I do that? The only way for you to remember it is for you to get out there and build this guy. But remember, traps are indiscriminate. Traps don't care what they catch. Traps don't care what get into them. It could be an endangered species. It could be your neighbor's cat. It could be your neighbor's little kid. If you're going to be practicing, make sure you dismantle the traps when you're done. Know your local laws. That way you don't get in trouble. One final word of caution. When you are setting these traps up, make sure you are out of the way of not only the engine, the spring pole, but the toggle stick as it moves. Just imagine what way this stick is going to move when this springs up. Right now it's going to flip around this way, and it could potentially swing out straight towards you. So if I'm building this trap, you don't want to be right there, and you don't want to be anywhere in the path of this. When I'm setting this trap, I do not want to be over top of it. I do not want to be in line with this. Come off to the side. I don't want to position myself here. I don't want to position myself here. I'm off to the side. I'm not above it. That way when it goes, it's not going to smack me in the face. That's it. That's how you're going to do this twitch up snare to catch birds. Hopefully you learned something. I'll see you again next time.